I'm Erin and this is Danny and the littlest member of our family River. We are making our way around Australia with our home in tow. Subscribe to follow along and keep up to date with our adventures.
Hey guys, so we've been travelling around Australia for about 4.5 months now, full time, towing a caravan. So I thought we may as well do a bit of a video to help people out on some tips and what we think will make their life a lot easier on the road.
Yes, these are our top tips of things we've learnt along the way in the past 4.5 months and a few little hacks in there.
Yes, I hope you enjoy.
This is probably the best $8 you'll spend on the entire trip, and for all of you who already travel Australia, you already know this. It's a WIKI Camps app. The app is so useful. I think we use it every time we find a new place to stay, we use it. It gives you a bunch of options for like free camps, low cost camps, caravan parks, and the best thing about it we think is the actual review system. So everybody reviews all of the campgrounds, so you get a really good idea whether the campground's any good, whether it's safe. Everyone also posts photos, so you actually get to see what the campground looks like in real life. And honestly, a lot of the free camps that we've been to and some awesome places we would have never found without WIKI Camps. The other really cool thing about WIKI Camps is you can actually plot your whole journey. So you can add all the places you want to stay, and it has a big journey planner so you can see everywhere you've been as well. So absolutely make sure you download this before you set out to travel. It's worth every cent.
Yeah, so one tip I would recommend people is when you're packing your caravan and start travelling, just try and get rid of everything you don't need. Literally be very thorough with it and make sure you get rid of absolutely everything you don't need. And also everything you are taking, try and take lightweight versions of that. So cutlery, etc. If you can get a lightweight plate instead of the big ceramic heavy ones. So more like the enamel coated ones are pretty good, nice and lightweight. Yeah, like cutting boards, etc. Just get some nice lightweight plastic ones instead of the big heavy timber ones. Yeah, so you just try and make everything as lightweight as possible, because it makes a big difference. Because otherwise you end up with so much weight in there, and then you end up going overweight on your caravan, which you don't want to do, because that's a bit of a hassle. And also, the lighter weight you are, the less fuel you use. So even with a caravan, I'd recommend getting a lightweight caravan instead of a big 3.5 ton one. If you get one that's 2.5 ton, that'll save you a lot of money in fuel. That way you don't need as much of a big heavy tow vehicle as well. And also the caravans, the lighter weight ones, are probably generally cheaper as well. And you save a shitload of money on fuel. You might save an extra $10,000-$15,000 on fuel going to Australia if you've got a lightweight vehicle. So another good tip is to make sure you've always got spares of important things. So for instance, tap connectors. Make sure you got spare ones of those, because I've lost a couple of those. And it's kind of annoying if you pull up to a campground and you're like, oh crap, got to hook up the hose and you can't. So just keep spare connectors. Also things like your shackles on your car. I've lost one of those before. And also it's really handy to have spare, because you can chuck an old one on, because it'd be really annoying if you had to tow your caravan something like, oh crap, I lost my shackle, I've got no spare ones. So just think of little things like that you might lose and could be a pain, and just take a couple of spares of those. So that's another good tip.
Tip number 4 is offline maps. So we use Google Maps when we travel. We find it just a bit easier than Apple Maps. And so before you leave a town, you can actually download offline maps. You just go into settings and it's in there, and then you can choose the area of the offline maps that you want. And it'll take a couple of minutes, it'll download it, and then it saves it. So you can close the app down. I've heard with Apple Maps that if you do the same thing, when you close the app, it wipes it apparently. But Google Maps, it will save it until you delete it. And then, because if you're going a lot of off-grid places, you often won't have reception when you're driving there or when you get there. So it's really, really handy to be able to download the map, and then you know exactly where you're going, even when you don't have reception. Highly recommend. And it's free. Okay, so the next tip we have is by joining the Discovery Park membership. So we actually have membership currently to Discovery Parks and NRMA. I think that we've only used the NRMA twice, and that was in Queensland. There doesn't seem to be as many of them over here. But the Discovery Parks in WA, there's so many. I feel like we've already stayed at about 6, and you get your money back super quickly. Is Doggo walking past?
Dog.
So yeah, I think it's about $50-ish to join, but they often have sales where you can get them half price anyway for the year, and you make that money back so quick, and you actually get membership perks. So at the moment, because we've stayed at so many Discovery Parks, we've gone up a level in the membership, so now we get like a free bag of ice every time we stay, and like early check-in, late check-out, that kind of stuff. For us, it was absolutely worth it. We've saved so much more money than what the fee was to buy the membership initially.
Tip number 6 is using FuelSpy. FuelSpy is like a website you can go on online, and it shows you all of the service stations all over Australia. The good thing about this is when you go from place to place, you can see where the nearest service stations are, and you can also see the prices of the fuel at those. So you can pick and choose on the cheapest ones, and you can also plan with how much range you have, and you know, you can see whether you need to fuel up at one's near you, or you can pick the next one, and so forth. So yeah, super handy app for when you're planning your travels with the amount of fuel you need to use, stuff like that. Totally recommend that app. It's great. Alright, so when you're mostly going off-grid sites where you don't have like amenities like toilets and stuff, obviously you need to have a portable toilet with you. Yeah, so what you recommend is, even if you've got the one in the caravans with the cassettes to pull out the back, make sure you got like 2 or even 3 spare cassettes, because when you're going off-grid you can fill them up pretty quickly, and it becomes a pain because you have to try and find a dump point and you can't use the toilet, you know what I mean? Especially depends how much people you have, obviously. If you've got a big family, you'll fill them up really quickly. So it'd be worth just doing a test, like just seeing how much you need, you know, if you go away for like a weekend and not use the toilets before you make a big trip around. Otherwise that's a big limitation to how long you can spend being off-grid, because yeah, obviously once you fill it right up, you're kind of screwed. You have to go find a dump point. Sometimes the dump points might be, you know, 100 k's away sort of thing. So yeah, that's a good tip.
So another thing that we find pretty helpful, especially when you're doing the long drives like through Northern Territory and into WA, is to kind of know where the grocery stores are and to pre-plan a little bit in advance. So the other thing you need to be aware of is when you go into WA, you have to throw out all your fresh fruit and veggies and things like honey, and there's a whole big list of things that you can't take across the border. So you kind of need to make sure that, you know, you don't stock up on a heap of groceries right before heading into WA. So a good time-saving tip is, we found this especially helpful in Queensland, is to do click and collect. So you can order the groceries online, you know, a day or so before you head into a town, and then you just roll into the town, go straight to the click and collect parking bay, grab your groceries, and then head straight to the campsite, and there, you know, you're there, you've got all your food, you're all good to go. I find that a bit harder in Northern Territory and WA. They don't seem to have as many click and collects, or if they do, you need to book like a week or so in advance, which just doesn't work for us. But in Queensland, it's definitely helpful, saves a lot of time, especially if you're only in a place for like a day or two and you don't want to spend, you know, waste a whole hour or more going to the actual grocery store and getting your groceries. I find that really helpful. So yeah, just make sure you pre-plan in advance, and you know, especially when you're changing states, like what you can and can't bring, and where the next grocery store is, and how much time you've got to get there. And then you won't ever have the issue of running out of food, or you know, eating tins of baked beans for dinner. Okay, so number 9 is a bit of a money saving hack, and it's to always have leftovers like available on travel days. So on travel days, quite often, you know, you're in a rush in the morning, packing everything up, leaving early, and then you're traveling in the car for hours, and when you get somewhere, everyone's tired and they're hangry, and the last thing you want to be doing is spending ages making a good lunch. So we find we save a lot of money by having like either having bread handy or having leftovers from dinner, so that you can quickly just chuck it in the microwave and have a really quick lunch ready to go. Otherwise you end up like buying food at servos, and honestly it's pretty crappy, and you spend so much more money doing that.
Yeah, for sure, because it saves a lot of arguments and everything too, because you get quite hangry, you know, especially on the road, you're driving a lot of hours. So if you always got food handy, it makes things a lot easier and better. Okay, so another tip is like paying attention to your average fuel usage and monitoring the speed you're traveling and how much it uses. Okay, so what I noticed when you're towing, right, and you're coming into a headwind, every like 5 kilometers an hour slower you drop will make a huge difference in fuel. So I always just pay attention to my average fuel usage, and you can reset that. So as you're driving, you can just reset it, and then it'll show you like your average fuel usage at the current time. So if you're coming to a strong headwind, you might be using say 13 litres per 100 kilometres at 100 k's an hour. If you go an extra 5 k's an hour, you might jump up to like 18 litres per kilometre. So I've noticed that like even 5 k's an hour makes a huge difference in fuel economy. So I'm always paying attention to that. And if I'm like, you know, sometimes you're like, oh, well, I'm using a lot more at the moment. And it's obviously because you're going to headwind. So you can just drop it down by 5 k's and even 10 k's, and you'll notice like fuel economy will increase a lot better. So it makes a big difference. So it's good to pay attention to that while you're driving. It can save you a lot of money in fuel. A good way to monitor your average fuel usage is, as you're driving along, you can reset the trip. So like I do that often, and then I can see within the last 20 minutes, half an hour, how much fuel I've been using on average. So I do that like every half an hour and just kind of monitor how much fuel I'm using.
So hopefully you guys found this video useful and picked up a few tips. Let us know what your top tips for travelling are.
Yeah, cheers guys. Let us know if there's anything else you'd like to know about. We can potentially do that in the future. Just put it down in the comments below and we'll let you know.
Yeah, we might do like a Q&A type video, so let us know. But thank you for watching, and make sure to subscribe and like.
Yeah, we're so close to 1,000 subscriber goal, so that'd be amazing when we hit that.
Alright, see you next week.